What's up, guys? So I decided to do some picks this year for the NFL. I usually do it every year kind of to myself, but I decided I kind of wanted to do it just for fun, do some record predictions and some playoff predictions. So, other than that, I think we can just kind of get right into it. The AFC North, I'm going to start with the North. I have Baltimore at 8-8, Cincinnati at 5-11, Cleveland at 4-12, and Pittsburgh at 12-4. So obviously Pittsburgh, I have winning the division there. And then I'm going to kind of also go through like each team, just kind of why, little short synopsis of why I picked that record for that team. So Baltimore 8-8. That all kind of hinges on Joe Flacco. Like, I just don't know. I don't know what to expect from Joe Flacco. It seems like he's going to play a lot better this year, just mainly because of the pressure from Jackson being behind him. But still, even with that, playing well in preseason and in training camp, that doesn't necessarily translate. So, I can't quite see them making the playoffs. But, 8-8, obviously, that's kind of a toss-up where it could go either way. So then I have Cincinnati at 5-11. And this one's interesting because they have a decent roster. But the reason I have them so many losses is their schedule. Because I was looking at each team's schedule and going like game by game. Their schedule is brutal. They just play. It's not like they even play a first place schedule. They just play a lot of good teams. I don't know. I just don't see them. They're beating some of those teams, and then some of the teams that could be a toss up. They're on the road, and it's like I don't know. It's just tough for me to look for wins for them. And I was trying to give them more wins because I really do think they have a pretty decent roster, but I just don't. Their schedule is just really tough, really really tough. Cleveland 4-12. This is another one. I honestly could have given them 2 more wins. The only reason I didn't is because of the quarterback. I think their roster, while it is young, but I think they have a really good roster. With their skill positions are all really good now. Good running backs, good receivers. Their defense is young, but it's good. Obviously, they have Garrett. But it's all going to depend on the quarterback. And I like Tyrod Taylor, but I just don't think he can carry a team that's young like that to a lot of wins. While I think that he's not going to mess anything up, he doesn't really have the ability to take games over for the most part. So I just can't give them. If they have outstanding quarterback play, I could see them getting 6 wins. But with just the roster they have being as young as it is, not being in position of winning a lot of games in their careers, I just can't see them winning more than that. Even if they put Baker Mayfield in, I think he's going to be a good quarterback, but I just don't think he's the type of guy yet that's going to be able to carry a team. And that might change in the future because obviously he's going to start eventually. Tyrod's just kind of there for the time being, but. So I have them at 4-12, but Pittsburgh 12-4. It's kind of the same old story for them, really. They're kind of like the Patriots at this point, where their talent's ridiculous. They just have so many good players. Their defense is going to be even better this year. They have a lot of younger guys. Picked up Morgan Burnett from the Packers at safety, which I think is a solid pickup. He's not a superstar or anything, but he's a good safety. Obviously the Bell situation doesn't help him much, but I think he'll be back eventually. And even without him, their running back Connor, their backup, is really good. And, Big Ben's going to do what he does. Antonio Brown's obviously going to get his and do what he does. He, best wide receiver in the NFL. So, I see them 12-4 winning the division. Also, at the end of these, when I get through all the divisions, I'll kind of go back over who all the playoff teams would be, where their seeding is and everything. So the next division, I have the AFC South, so I'm going north, south, east, west. So Houston, starting off, and I'm doing all these in alphabetical order as well. I have Houston at 10-6, and then I have the Colts at 9-7, and that's an important one. I'm going to get back to that one because, of course, people are going to think I'm crazy. Jacksonville also at 10-6, and then Tennessee at 6-10. So I guess kind of starting out, Houston, I actually have them tied for the division lead, but they lose a tiebreaker to Jacksonville. So Houston, I mean, you know, they have a really good roster. Obviously, their defense is great, really talented roster, but again, it's going to come down to quarterback. You know, Deshaun Watson coming back, I think he's a stud. I like watching him play. You know, it's just going to depend on how he comes back from the ACL, which for a quarterback, you know, isn't as bad. I feel like he's going to come back and he'll be fine. He might not be able to run as much, but he's still going to be crazy fast. I mean, he's young, so he'll be okay, I think. As long as he stays healthy, I can see the team, you know, being really good. And the only reason I didn't give him more than 10 is just, one, the whole uncertainty with Watson, but also their defense, as far as their health, kind of the same thing. I mean, they were ravaged with injuries last year, and they were really never the same once all their big-time defensive players went out. So if they can stay healthy, but at the same time, I just don't know if they're ready to take that next step. So that's kind of why I have them at 10-6. So I'm going to skip the Colts for now because everyone's going to go crazy about that one probably. Jacksonville, I also have a 10-6. Defense, obviously, is one of the best in the NFL by far. And this one comes down to Bortles. I mean, a lot of these picks are going to notice come down to quarterback, but I mean, that's kind of how the NFL works. So, so Bortles, I just don't know how much I trust him. He does what he needs to do. He's a good game manager, but you know, how much is he going to be able to do if, say, you know, the running game gets taken away, stuff like that. I don't know if I trust him. If I trust him enough in a situation like that. But obviously, their defense is going to win a lot of games. Fournette will win them a lot of games. So yeah, that's kind of how I see them 10-6, because they were 10-6 last year and they were really good. So I see them around the same. Tennessee is a really interesting one. I don't know kind of how to gauge them. They, I don't know. I really like Mariota. I just don't know if I trust him enough to be able to carry the load, you know? I mean, Derrick Henry's great at running back, don't get me wrong, but Mariota, I feel like when he's asked to do a lot, he's not quite there with that yet. So that's kind of the reason why that's what holds them back for me. And I don't know, I hated to make them 6-10. I mean, I think their talent is better than that, but there's something about them. And plus, they have a first-year head coach. You know, that's always kind of iffy. Their defense is great. I mean, they have a good defense. They have talented players. I just feel like they haven't really put it together yet. And it's just, they're in a tough division. I mean, they're in a tough division, you know, with Luck coming back, Jacksonville, Houston. You know, with that and the combination of who they're playing, some of their guys on their schedule, I just can't see them winning to more than 6 games. But so for the one that everyone's probably wondering about, the Colts at 9-7. Some people would probably, I mean, obviously Colts fans probably think they're going to be pretty good, but outside looking in, people probably think this is just absolutely crazy. Well, so kind of my explanation for this. There's a few different things, and I'm gonna kind of go into detail with the Colts and the Packers as well, because obviously I watch those teams and I know them better. So this just kind of, I just have a more of an inside view, I feel like, with them. So the Colts, the only reason I have them winning so many games, one, I feel like their schedule in certain parts is favorable, and two, Andrew Luck. And of course, there's all these questions about Andrew Luck, whether he's going to be good or not, whether he's going to do anything. Oh, well, he just played preseason. We don't really know what he's like. I saw some of the throws in preseason. I don't care if he's not throwing it 50 yards down. He's throwing it 50 yards in practice. And I understand it's not a game, but your arm strength isn't different in practice than it is in a game. So if you're throwing it 50 yards in practice, you can throw it 50 yards in a game. I don't care what anyone says. That's just what it is. So you have that aspect of it. And then the fact that he was running around, taking hits, making throws. I mean, he had a few where he's like sidestepped some guys in the preseason, zipped the ball in there for a first down. That's all I need to know. I mean, that's all I need to see to know that I'm not saying he's back as in he's going to be throwing 40 touchdowns or 35 touchdowns, but he's back to somewhat of his former self. I mean, he can still elude pressure. He knows how to read a defense. That's the other thing. His ability to read a defense isn't gone. Like, just because you're out doesn't mean you don't know what you're doing anymore. Like, he still knows how to play quarterback. Yes, he's going to be rusty. I'm not saying he's going to come out here and be an MVP, but I mean, when you have a talent like this and you can see that he can still play, which I can see that's all I need to know. So, as far as the actual 9 wins themselves, where they actually come from, 2 of them I have weeks 1 and 2. I think they're going to start out 2-0 against the Bengals and the Redskins. I think the Redskins are going to be a decent team, but I don't know. I just feel like it's going to come down to the quarterbacks in that game, and Andrew Luck obviously is a better quarterback. So that's nothing against Alex Smith, because I think he's a good quarterback, but he's not a game changer. You know, you got to have game-changing quarterbacks in the NFL if you want to win. 99% of the time, that's what you need. So you got those 2 wins. I have them splitting with either the Giants or Dallas. My specific pick, I have them splitting with the Giants, or beating the Giants, but either way, I could see them winning one of those and losing the other. So that's 3 wins. I have them beating Tennessee both times. Again, I know it's division, and you know that it's hard to sweep division teams, but until I see Tennessee beat Andrew Luck, which they haven't done when Andrew Luck plays, I'm not going to pick them. So you got the Colts in those games, so that's 5 games. I have them splitting with Houston just because I always feel like they play Houston well. 6 games, that's 6 games. I don't have them beating Jacksonville, although I could see them doing that. I'm trying to think of the other games. They play Buffalo. I have them winning that game because they have so many rookies. They always struggle against the Jets, but I don't know. I feel different about this time that they can beat the Jets. So that's 7 games. And then, let's see, they play the NFC East, which is the Redskins and the Redskins, Giants, Cowboys, Eagles. Yeah, I don't have them beating the Eagles. Let me think here. Dolphins. I have them beating the Dolphins. So that's 8. There's one other one I can't remember. But either way, I mean, when you look at their schedule, it's really not that difficult. I mean, Oakland, that's the other team. So I have me being Oakland. And that one's, again, a toss-up. But even if they finished 8-8 instead of 9-7, I still think they are very capable of winning that many games. And I really think that. I'm not just making this up. So that's kind of what I think. And, you know, they were losing in the second half of, or they were winning in the second half of 9 games last season. That was with a terrible roster. Well, a pretty terrible roster. Jacoby Brissett, who I think did a fine job, but you know, he's not Andrew Luck. And you know, if you can do that with playing that schedule also, which was a second place schedule at the time, if you can do that with that roster, I don't see why you can't do it with this roster. I think the roster's improved. I'm not saying it's I'm not saying it's a Super Bowl contending roster. I'm not even saying it's a late playoff game, deep in the playoff roster. But they're much better. I mean, they're much better. Also, I kind of take into account the Colts went 11-5 Andrew Luck's rookie season with a garbage roster, just garbage. I mean, that roster had no business being in the playoffs, but Andrew Luck got him there with a garbage roster. I mean, that right there tells me enough. That tells me all I need to know. And if the division was the same as it was then, if the AFC South was as bad as it was then, I'd pick the Colts to probably win 11 games. Honestly, I could see them doing something like that again, but just because the division's tougher, I don't think that'll happen. But I just don't see why it's so hard to see the Colts going 9-7, 8-8, 9-7. And again, there's a lot of toss-up games they have. They could lose at Washington. They could lose to the Cowboys, to the Giants, to the Bengals. I mean, but I'm just taking into account if they start playing the way they should be playing and Luck slowly eases back into what he needs to do, I don't see why they can't go 9-7. So that's kind of my thing with the Colts. So Jacksonville winning that division, tiebreaker over Houston. Next, the AFC East, I have Buffalo 4-12, Miami 4-12, New England 10-6, Jets 6-10. I mean, what else is there to say about this? This division just is awful. It's so bad. Like every year, it's just Buffalo made the playoffs last year, but honestly, they shouldn't have even been in. It was a miracle they even got in, literally, because the Bengals had to win for them to get in, to help them get in. I mean, there's just this division is just terrible. It's always terrible. I mean, the management for all these teams is a joke. That's why they're garbage every year, except for New England, obviously. The other three teams, the management's a joke. I mean, they can't. It's a wonder why these teams are always bad. Like, I mean, literally, it's the New England Invitational. It's New England and three other guys. I mean, it's the Blind Sisters of the Poor. I mean, it's whatever you want to call it. They're just terrible. Like Buffalo, they made the playoffs last year. Their defense is pretty good. One, they lost Taylor, who was really the only reason they made it because he was really the only decent player. Okay, McCoy is good too. Him and McCoy were really the only two players on offense that did anything. But this year they're not even starting Josh Allen, who I don't even know if he's going to be good or not, but I think he's way better than Nathan Peterman, who is awful. Threw 5 interceptions in one half last year. That tells you all you need to know right there. I don't know why they would even start him over Allen, but anyway. So I think I had them go starting off like 0-7. I mean, the beginning of their schedule, 1, it's hard. They're playing like the Packers, New England, teams like that. And then 2, they lost. All they have is LaShawn McCoy now, and I mean every team knows that, so they're going to key in on LaShawn. He's going to get his, but still, I mean, you can only do so much when your running back is your focal point, and you don't have an elite defense like a Jacksonville type of defense to bail you out. I just don't see them winning that many games. I mean, same thing with Miami. I mean, they're just they're so weird. Like, they always have good talent. Well, except this year. They usually have pretty good talent, but they never put it together. Their coach is always a problem. This year he isn't, but their coach is usually a problem. Tannehill, I know he's out last year, but he's okay, but he's not, he was drafted in like the 3rd round. I mean, he may not even be there next year. I mean, he's just not he's not a good enough quarterback to be able to just shoulder this team and say, come on, guys, follow me. So I just don't, again, I can't see him winning a lot of games. And I mean, I think their running back's pretty good, but they lost Landry. I mean, they lost, not that Sue was doing a crazy amount of stuff, but they lost Sue, so that just takes away the presence of that. Cameron Wake is like 55 years old. I mean, they don't have a lot of talent. And they don't have a quarterback to carry them without talent. So I just can't see them winning any more than that. The Jets are interesting because I think the Jets are honestly better than people give them credit for. I mean, last year they were picked up. I saw some people picking them to go 0-16, which I think is stupid anyway. But people go picking them to go 0-16, 1-15. They won like 5 games with a pretty bad roster. I mean, for the most part. and the quarter McCown actually played pretty well, but I think Darnold's good. I think he's the real deal. I understand preseason, you can only take so much out of that, but he just has that look, like you have guys like that come out and they just have that look about them when they play, like number one picks, that kind of stuff, especially quarterbacks. Like when you see Andrew Luck or, Carson Wentz, you're like, that guy is a real quarterback. That's just kind of what I see with Darnold. I'm going 6-10, so it's not like anything crazy, but I don't know. If they can win 5 games with the garbage team they had last year, I don't see why they can't win 6 this year with in my opinion, a better quarterback. He's going to take his lumps. Every rookie's going to take their lumps, but I think he's pretty good. I think he's better than people probably. People see that he threw a lot of interceptions in college, and that I understand that, but at the same time, it's like that doesn't mean it's going to automatically translate in the NFL. There's guys that never throw picks in college, and they throw all the time in the NFL, and I understand the competition's better, but that doesn't always translate. So I don't know. I see them being a decent team, and their defense is a little better. They're young, but they're getting better. Anderson's a great receiver. Crowell, running back, he's a decent running back. They have some decent running backs. I can see them being a rebuilding team, but they're getting better. I think they're on the upswing. New England, there's really not much to say about them. 10-6. The only reason I'm at 10-6 is because they have like a pool boy starting at wide receiver. They have no wide receivers. Hogan is literally, for the first 4 weeks, their only wide receiver. And I think he's a good player, but, that's it. They have no other proven guys on the receiving roster. The beginning of their schedule is pretty tough. So I just, not that I don't think they're going to win the division, because, again, I think they will at 10-6, but I just think they're going to take some lumps, losing a defensive coordinator. Not saying that that's a huge deal for them, but I think it factors in. I don't know. Their defense is they're hit or miss, kind of like they were last year. And I just think a lot of the teams in the AFC in general have kind of just gotten better, so that doesn't really help them, I feel like. So that's the only reason I have them losing 6. But with them, you never know. They could be 13-3. It's just so. They're just who they are at this point. You know what they're going to do. Until Brady retires and Belichick retires, they're going to do the same thing every year for the most part. Also lost their left tackle, so I think that's kind of important. I'm sure the next one will do fine, but I don't think it's going to be, as good a situation as it was last year. So yeah, New England winning that one. And then I have Denver, the AFC West. I have Denver at 8-8. Kansas City 6-10, Chargers 10-6, winning the division, and Oakland 6-10. So Denver, man, that's another toss. They're kind of like Baltimore. Case Keenum, what's he going to do? He played great last year, but he also had a great defense. And Denver's defense is good, but it's getting older. They lost a few players. It's not Vikings good. And even if it was Case Keenum, I'm a huge Case Keenum fan. I really liked him in college, but he's not, again, I know I keep saying this, but he's not a guy that can take over games. You got to have quarterbacks. If you want to win big games, you got to have quarterbacks that can take games over. And he can't do it. When you saw last year, when he played the Eagles in the NFC Championship, he was awful. Just awful. He's playing a good defense, I get that, but you got to be able to do something. You're going to play the best defenses in the playoffs, and he just was awful. He just can't handle that kind of thing. So I don't know. I don't feel like he's good enough to be able to get them. 8-8 for them, honestly, is pretty generous. They could be 6-10, 7-9. I don't know. I gave them the benefit of the doubt just because their defense is decent, and I think Case Keenum's better than freaking Simeon, so that helps them a little bit. So I'll give them 8-8. But Kansas City, gosh, this was one, at least in the AFC, this is one of the ones I looked at for the longest time because I could not. I have them at 6-10, but oh man, it's. I want to give them more wins, I really do, but I just feel like with Mahomes, I do not know what to think about Mahomes. I mean, I would love for him to play well. I just love the NFL in general, so I love when new quarterbacks, new rising stars are playing well. That's awesome because that makes the NFL a better product. It's more fun for everyone to watch. But I don't know how he's going to play. I mean, I really don't. I mean, he has obviously a cannon, just a cannon of an arm. And that I honestly think can win some games. But is it going to, can they go toe-to-toe with the big boys, They're playing first-place schedule because they won their division. So that means they're playing New England. I can't see them winning that, especially with a second-year quarterback. They're playing Jacksonville. Again, defense. I just can't see him doing well against Jacksonville's defense. Pittsburgh. I could see him doing better against Pittsburgh, but it's Pittsburgh. They can score in bunches. It's just tough. I just can't. I don't know. I just can't see him winning more than that this year. I think he'll get better, but I still really don't know with Mahomes. I just don't. Obviously, Hunt's great. Kelsey's great. Tyreek Hill's great. And, again, that alone will win them some games, but if Mahomes doesn't play well, I don't know, man. That's tough. That's tough. That's one of those teams, again, they could maybe win 8, or they could win 4 or 5, depending on how Mahomes plays. It's just a lot of burden to just completely, put him in for one game last year. He played okay. And then just, throw him in the fire and say, okay, here you go. Alex Smith's gone, second year player, there you go. And he's not even necessarily a polished player like some quarterbacks are when they get, put in. So, I don't know. They're an interesting team to me. It's hard to pick that because their defense is still pretty good. Their special teams are great with Tyreek Hill and everything. And their skill positions are some of the best in the NFL. But, man, you got to have a decent quarterback in the NFL. You have to. So, I don't know. So I have them at 6-10. And also, that's also a product of division. I just think this division is going to beat the crap out of each other, especially because it's up for grabs this year. So, Chargers, that's one of my, I know a lot of people are saying this, but I honestly thought it too before I really heard a lot of people say that I think the Chargers are one of the breakout teams this year. I really do. If they can stay relatively healthy, they are stacked. They have so many good players. I mean, offense, obviously, they have Phillip Rivers. Yes, he's old, but he has I think I saw a stat the other day. He has the most touchdowns over the last 2 seasons in the NFL. Most touchdown passes. That's worth something. They have Gordon, running back. Great. Top 5 running back in some people's opinion. Keenan Allen, top 5 receiver in some people's opinion. Heck, even Antonio Gates, dude is 85 years old. His age matches his number, but the dude is still good. I mean, he still has talent. He can still do something. He's going to be a decent player. He's not going to be a top 10 tight end or anything, but he's going to be a decent player, and Phillip Rivers knows him well, all that kind of stuff. But their defense is really, really what's the big difference. Last year, they were already pretty good. I mean, I think they won 6 of their last 7 games. But their defense it got even better. I mean, it has Bosa already. They have, what's his name? He used to play for Green Bay. I can't even think of his name. The corner, Casey Hayward. So they have Casey Hayward. He's a top 5 corner in the NFL now. I mean, they just have, they have solid safeties. They just have an all-around great defense, and their offense is great too. And their offense, I also forgot Tyrell Williams, the receiver from Clemson. He was hurt last year all season. He's coming back. So, I mean, they have 2. I mean, yes, he hasn't played, so we don't know what he's going to be, but I think he's going to be a pretty good player. So, they have 2 good receivers, great running back, good Hall of Fame quarterback, Hall of Fame tight end. I think they're going to be that breakthrough team. I have to agree with a lot of the people a lot of the pundits that are saying that kind of stuff. And then, finally, Oakland. Man, Oakland. I'm a huge Derek Carr fan. He's probably my 3rd favorite quarterback behind Rodgers and Luck. But that team's a freaking mess. It's a mess. I mean, they have, Gruden. I'm a huge Gruden fan, but man, he's making it tough now. I mean, He's over here trading away Mac. He's players like I feel like it's tough for someone like Gruden to come in and coach now because of how kind of mentality has changed as far as coaching goes. There's not as many in-your-face scream type of guys, and a lot of players don't react to that well, which, that is what it is. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying it's good. That's just how it goes now. It's kind of a generational thing, He hasn't coached in 10 years. 10 years in the NFL is a long time. Long time. And I'm not saying he's not going to win any games. They could be a decent team because they have some decent players, but, man, that's just... I feel like there's a lot of turmoil there right now. A lot of fans are, pissed off. They're going to leave in 2 years, I think. Yeah, 2 seasons they'll be in Las Vegas. So, I feel like that's really going to take a toll. And I have them at 6-10 because of that. Just, again, because of their division, but also because it's going to be tough. They're just going to face a lot of adversity this year. And it's going to be tough for them. I love Carr. Jordy Nelson, my boy from Green Bay, but he can only do so much at this point, which is not his fault. He's tore his ACL. What's he supposed to do? So I don't know. I just don't see them doing any better than that. So anyway, those are my AFC picks. I'm gonna do my NFC picks a little later, but kind of to recap the playoff seedings, and then I'll kind of go through my playoffs in my NFC one because I'll have every team then, obviously, so I can do both sides. Steelers number 1 seed, winning the AFC North. Chargers at the number 2 seed. And this one's interesting because the Chargers, Pats, and Jags, I have all of them at 10-6. And I looked up the tiebreaker scenarios and everything. Chargers end up beating the Patriots, the tiebreakers, because of common opponents. So I have the Chargers second. Patriots third. Patriots win over Jacksonville because of division record and head-to-head. So Jags at 4 seed, Texans at 5 seed, and surprisingly, and I didn't even mean to do this, it's just how it happened because of the records, I couldn't believe the Colts at a 6 seed. I honestly didn't even have them making the playoffs. I just had their record at 9-7. I thought maybe there would be like another 9-7 team or something, but yeah, Colts at 9-7 at the 6 seed. So yeah, those are my AFC playoff teams. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. It's my first time doing this on like a video, so I know it's kind of weird, and I probably made it too long and all that. But I hope you guys enjoyed if you take a look and watch it. So yeah, I'll see you guys a little later and have the NFC picks.